President of Parliament says he is hoping to get more insight regarding the Justice Minister's plans. Member of Parliament for the UD wants answers from the Prime Minister on the COVID-19 support. But first up, forecaster at the Met Office says we are in for a busy season. Those are the headlines for Tuesday, June the 16th, 2020. And this is SXM Daily News. I'm Valerie Van Putten. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. And as usual, we have a packed newscast for you, so let's get started. In our first story for this evening, as it is the start of the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season, and if you are still wondering what is in store for the island for this year, forecaster at the St. Martin Met Office, Cheryl LeBlanc, told our news department that it is forecasted to be a very busy one.
First of all, we have heard that this 2020 hurricane season is forecast to be a very busy one. We may ask why, or some of us may already know why. We have several institutions, individuals, every year they do analysis based on historical data and what has been happening in the environment. They look at similar years and they come up with a forecast. Now, we, the meteorological departments in the Caribbean, we most look at the NOAA's forecast, the NHC's forecast. And this year, when they have done their analysis, they have forecasted that we should expect 13 to 19 named storms. So 13 to 19 named storms, 6 to 10 of which should become hurricanes, and 3 to 6 would be intense or major hurricanes, that is category 3 and beyond. Now, this is just a forecast. It is not saying that exactly this is what is going to happen. And just to be a little more precise, NOAA has been giving ranges from 6 to 10 or 13 to 19. Other institutions will just give you one figure. For example, the Colorado State University, which came up with 16 named storms, just one figure, 8 of which would be hurricanes and 4 would be major hurricanes. Now, it is said to be an above normal season because based on history and based on averages, an average season carries 12 named storms, 6 of which would be hurricanes and 3 would be major hurricanes. So anytime a forecast is above 12 named storms, it is considered a very busy season, thus 2020. For the past few years, we have had very busy seasons. From 1995, we are in a busy era. For most recent years, which people will remember, 2017, where we had 17 named storms, 10 were hurricanes and 6 were major hurricanes, and everyone on St. Martin will remember Hurricane Irma. For 2018, we had 15 named storms, 8 hurricanes, 2 major hurricanes, and we had Hurricane Michael, those of you will remember, in Florida. And last year, 2019, we had 18 named storms. So you see very busy seasons for the past recent years. We had 18 named storms, 6 hurricanes, and 3 major, and everyone will remember Dorian in the Bahamas. So we are in an era of very, very active hurricanes.
And we will have more of the forecaster LeBlanc in tomorrow's edition of SXM Daily News. And in other news at this time, the Chairman of Parliament, the Honorable Rolando Bryson, is hoping to get more insight into the Minister of Justice's plans regarding her recent pronouncement of immigration crackdown. The Justice Minister, the Honorable Anna Richardson, informed the general public that the immigration laws of St. Martin will be strictly enforced in the coming weeks and months. Persons who currently reside in St. Martin without the legal documentation are advised to take this as a warning and should start making the necessary provisions to voluntarily leave the country or run the risk of getting detained and deported to their country of origin, the minister said last week. While the Chairman of Parliament agrees that immigration reform must be realized, there is also a need to take into consideration the broader picture.
One thing I know about our Minister of Justice is that she has never shied away in even her short tenure so far from coming to Parliament and being open with the members of Parliament about the intentions of the government with regards to justice. I mean, she's been there for the TF-ETF issues. She's met with us on the prison issues. So I definitely expect that Parliament can look forward to a more broader discussion on the subject, because it is something that is very polarizing in our society. We understand the makeup of our society is a very multicultural one. I myself, being of immigrant parents, and my mother being from Colombia, I always understand that has been something that St. Martin has built itself upon. But at the same time, we do also know the responsibility, especially as members of Parliament, legislators, in the need to uphold the law. And if that is something that the minister is intending to do, just to simply ensure that our laws are being followed, it's something that I can support. I think we have to add to that ways in which we can make it easier for those that do want to make a significant contribution to society and be a part of our beautiful island. Then we should also use the law to find better methods for them to register and get things going, because oftentimes we've heard the immigration process has been very cumbersome, so we need improvement there as well. I think it's not a matter of just looking at the controls. I think people read into that as the only thing. I think what we're seeing here is full immigration reform, and no one can deny that things need to be better in St. Martin when it comes to immigration.
How soon do you intend to see the minister responsible for justice in Parliament to answer those concerns of parliamentarians overall?
I would expect she'll be there soon. I can't put an exact date, as this week's Parliament schedule has already been set. But I think it's a discussion that will happen with the members of Parliament quite soon. As I said before, it is not the type of thing where in the past you have to have ministers just working at islands on their own and shying away from giving proper explanations to government. I think this government so far has already proven that they don't kick the can down the road as previous governments. They actually address even the toughest, even the controversial issues. They don't shy away from addressing them, and that's why I support this government fully. And I do look forward to them coming and explaining to the people's representatives all the different activities that they do.
And in other news at this time, Chairman of the Board of the St. Martin Academy, PSVE, says, regarding the teachers and their salaries, there are so many alternatives to this 12.5% cut. Government has a choice. One of the alternatives is you subsidize the school, reduce your subsidy and your cost, and leave me alone. He expounds.
Government got a choice. What I'm saying to government is there are several alternatives to this command of 12.5%. One of the alternatives is you subsidize the school. Now, in my case, the subsidy of 12.5% represents about 1.2 million guilders a year. Deduct that from the subsidy. I'm not going to be happy, but then if you reduce your subsidy, you reduce your cost by 12.5%, thank you, God bless you, leave me alone. You cut. If you even have a fight it, they're going to take me 6 months before I get a proper answer or whatever. So, but you cut. Another alternative is to say, okay, you want to cut in vacation allowance alone. I had a quarrel with the former minister Smith, I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, I could remember.
In which, for the vacation allowance, he said he had been advancing the schools a certain amount every month to cover that. Good. You're subsidizing the vacation allowance too. Stop that advance every month. If you do it by now, you would have covered half the year. That's 50% of the same thing. You understand? So again, that's an alternative. Government saves money. Stop the advancing of vacation allowance.
But that would affect the performance.
It's going to affect the teachers, but then again, Amy, we going to have to argue about what right the government has. The government has a wrong premise also. They talk to the unions. Okay. Say the unions haven't agreed as far as I understand, but let's say the unions agree. The unions don't represent 100% of employees.
Exactly.
All employees, civil servants, teachers aren't members of the union. If you have a collective labor agreement, you go negotiate and the workers ratify it.
Yeah.
Then, hallelujah. But you far from there. The unions haven't agreed. You ain't changed the law. So what are you doing messing with people's salary? Because Holland says so. Holland said to go mess with people's salary. Holland is dictating from its pulpit what they think you should be doing.
And still to come, President of WIFO says workers at the towers need to hold the owners responsible. I'll have the details to that story and much more when SXM Daily News returns.
GEBE has been faithfully serving the communities of St. Martin, powering your home and our economy. Come rain or shine, our qualified team of professionals are working hard 24 hours a day to provide you and your family with safe, reliable electricity and water. We use the latest technologies and test our products daily to maintain the highest international standards. Our friendly staff is always there to assist you, whether in person, over the phone, or online. We are committed to constantly improving our products and services, making them more efficient, effective, and environmentally friendly to serve you better today and our next generation of clients tomorrow. GEBE, powering a brighter future.
Our friend Megawati is here with tips to save you energy. 1. Turn your airco temperature up. 2. Use a ceiling fan instead. 3. Buy energy-saving products. Save some green with NVGEBE.
And as we continue now with more news for this evening, President of the Windward Islands Federation of Labor, Theophilus Thompson, speaking at WIFO's union's press briefing on Thursday last, June the 11th, said that the workers at the towers at Mullet Bay needs to hold the owners of the towers responsible for what is happening. He appealed to the workers and issued them some advice.
The owners of the towers are the one who I would hold responsible for what happened in the towers. That is Hussein Ansari as the owner, and a young man called Abdallah, who is the accountant. The general manager actually following instructions and executing instructions, which is uncalled for. And I will appeal to all workers, if you don't agree with something, don't sign no document, absolute no document. Make a report to the labor office or come to the union and launch your complaint. We are requesting from the Labor Department and from the Minister of Finance all of those companies that receive, because while there are rumors that companies will receive, the manager said that they did not receive any money as yet. They only receive once. And that is creating a lot of confusion within the workforce. So I would like to see from the Labor Department and from the Minister of Finance all those companies that receive monies and the amount that they receive. For comparison, just a while ago, I received 2 pay slips from employees from a company. One before they got the cut and one after they got the cut. It's ridiculous with the cut. People can't afford to meet their demands. They can't afford to meet their bills. And that is driving them into poverty. That's why we keep emphasizing the fact that had our government talked to the unions before they went and speak to the authorities, the government in The Hague, we wouldn't have this confusion right now, because they would have understand the economy and know exactly what's going on. Because we have the grievance of the workers. The workers, they have lost confidence in the Department of Labor, so they hardly go there. Could you imagine the minister said only about 2 complaints they receive from the public, while we have scores of complaints. And the way how they operate right now, they go by appointment. There's nothing that's been done during a particular day when an employee go, or during a particular week. It's always a week after you have to make your appointment for. And that, for me, that's ridiculous. that is bringing more mental stress and strain to the workers.
And in other news, Member of Parliament Sarah Westcott Williams, speaking at the reconvened parliamentary meeting of June the 3rd, queried the Prime Minister on the request to the Netherlands for COVID-19 support. She asked if government can give an official response and what exactly has been agreed to. She expounded.
The request to the Netherlands, and if you're asking what does have to do with the topic of discussion, in the nota van wijziging just submitted to Parliament by the government, they are using the conditions by the Dutch government to so-called push through this pension reform. So very specifically, can the government share with Parliament, one, its request to the Dutch government for COVID-19 support? What was that request in writing? Secondly, can the government provide to Parliament the official response by the Kingdom government to the government of St. Martin regarding their request for COVID-19 assistance? So can we receive those? Can we also receive what exactly has been agreed to between the Minister of Finance and the labor unions regarding the 12.5% cut? We have read regarding the vacation allowance. The Prime Minister just indicated to Parliament that the Minister of Finance and the unions for civil servants have an agreement that basically replaces any cuts to the salaries of civil servants and semi-public entities. So can we receive in writing the agreement that exists right now with respect to the civil servants, the cuts that they have agreed to with government? So again, in order to understand and appreciate the amendment that is before us, which is actually based on the Dutch government's conditions, and the government is saying that in the amendment, can one, the request to the Dutch government for assistance in connection with COVID-19, the response by the Dutch government, and the agreement with civil servants. And remember, Mr. Chairman, this 12.5% cut suggested, not suggested, proposed by the Dutch government is not only about civil servants. It is also for those subsidized entities, etc., etc. So it's important that those persons too understand what is being asked of them. So, Mr. Chairman, if we can receive those documents referred to in this amendment to this pension law in order to understand why and how the government is pushing forward with this pension reform.
And in responding to the MP's questions, Prime Minister, the Honorable Sylvia Jacobs, said that she did forward the documentation to Parliament. She then elaborated.
MP Westcott Williams regarding the response from the Netherlands to our response pertaining to the conditions. I must respond that in my meeting of the 20th of May, which was actually a COVID-19 update, I did forward the documentation to the Parliament. However, if the Parliament reiterates that they have not received it, I will, upon resumption of work tomorrow, have this forwarded to the Parliament, of course, being something, again, confidential. RMR type documents are not for public consumption, but the Parliament, of course, can peruse it with the griffier, in the office of the griffier. The agreement between Minister of Finance and the unions as such would have to be shared by the Minister of Finance, and I will forward that information to him to get that to you as soon as possible through you, Mr. Chairman. And if any other laws, so this today's handling is, you could say, asking of Parliament to do some urgent approvals if they can, within their, how you call it? What's that thing? Vrije mandaat to do so. And the other laws that are being considered as necessary for any of these conditions. An overview has been sent to me. However, I've not had the opportunity to deliberate on it together with my legal advisors. And as soon as that is done, we will also forward that overview of what legislation may be needed moving forward for any of the remaining conditions, that they will be forwarded to Parliament also at soonest, let us just say.
Now, turning to our weather forecast for Tuesday, June the 16th, 2020. Low-level pockets of moisture drifting in the easterly wind flow may induce some brief isolated showers during this forecast period. Meanwhile, the Atlantic high-pressure system will maintain mostly moderate easterly winds. Slight to moderate seas are expected during the next few days, with waves up to 6 feet. So the outlook through Thursday midday, partly cloudy with brief isolated showers possible. Now, let's turn to your 3-day forecast. And still to come, founder of the Wildflower Institute talks of her long-term goals for the Institute. We'll have the details to that story and more when SXM Daily News returns.
Make use of WIB mobile banking with easy access and direct usage of face recognition, PIN code, or fingerprint. Download WIB mobile banking app and make your transaction from anywhere at any time. For more information, visit wib-bank.net/quick-login.
And as we continue now with more news, these two items from the police blotter. The police received several calls on Sunday morning, June the 14th, 2020, concerning a drive-by shooting that took place on the Sister Modesta Road in Simpson Bay. At the location, the officers were informed by witnesses that two men in a white Mazda with Dutch plates drove up to the car wash and proceeded to fire several shots at the location. After firing several shots, the suspects fled the scene in the direction of Welfare Road. Witnesses assisted the police officers with an accurate description of the vehicle that was on the scene, and this information was quickly passed along to the Central Dispatch, who then immediately alerted all patrols in the area. The patrols in the area were able to spot the vehicle matching the description and still in the Cold Bay area. The officers quickly stopped the white Mazda and apprehended the two suspects with the initials IJ and GJ, who were immediately taken into custody and transported to the police station in Phillipsburg, where they are being held for questioning. The car was also confiscated pending further investigation. And also on Sunday morning, June the 14th, 2020, the Central Dispatch directed the police and the fire department to Lulu's Garage in the Sucker Garden after receiving several calls that there was a fire in progress. At the location, the patrol noticed that several of the vehicles stored at the garage were engulfed in flames. The fire department, who was already on the scene, extinguished the burning vehicles. After a hefty struggle at the location, the firemen on the scene were able to subdue the flames, and after assessing the damage, it was clear that 11 cars were destroyed during the blaze. The personnel of the technical department of the police are currently still investigating the cause of this fire. Arson is suspected in this case, and the investigation is still ongoing. And as we continue now in our series with the founder of the Wildflower Institute, Executive Director and founder of the Wildflower Institute, speaking to our news department recently, tells us of her long-term goals and the future of the Wildflower Institute. She said that her goal is the eradication of violence in every form. She said, however, that we all have to do that together if we are to succeed.
So long-term goal is, so as a social worker, as a researcher, you'd like to say eradication of violence totally. That's what I'd like to do before I leave before I leave the earth. That's the goal, right? Eradication of violence, totally every form. How we're going to get there is, yes, indeed, we have to work together, right? So for sure, a lot of the institutions, a lot of the foundations that take care of, what's the word that I want? Marginalized persons that have a difficulty with accessing resources, right? So whether it's education, finances, that sort of thing, that put you really in a position where you're frustrated and angry, and then it just happens to ignite, right? And so poverty is a real pusher of that too. And I think that we have to really, really pay attention to those kinds of elements in your society. If you're putting people under so much pressure where they're trying to make ends meet and there's no recourse or way for them to learn about behavior and learn about how to manage stresses, and also being able to support these people in a substantial way. So I would be looking to be working with businesses as well, education and awareness, looking to work with different departments of government, VSA, education, Ministry of Justice.
Going into the schools.
Definitely going into the schools. But we want to grow staff because, like you said, we can't do it alone. So that's one of the, the elements that we have to grow. And then just different organizations, right, that take care of crisis mental health, all of those types of organizations that really, really have a good grasp on understanding what the population is going through.
And still to come, the Indian Merchants Association donates non-perishable and dry good baskets to the most vulnerable. I'll have the details to that story when SXM News returns. And as we end this edition of SXM Daily News for this evening, the Indian Merchants Association has donated non-perishable and dry goods leading to 500 food baskets distributed to the most vulnerable. The Indian Merchants Association has donated to date 500 food packages in total for the most vulnerable in our society. A team consisting of 30-plus volunteers packed and distributed food packages every weekend from the 16th of May. The team worked in collaboration with the government, namely the Secretary General of the Ministry of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, Ministry VSA, Joy Arnell, Department Head of Community Development, Family and Humanitarian Affairs, Chantal George Groeneveld, and staff, and members of the St. Martin Police Force and various community councils and/or community-minded persons. Persons are reminded that those needing assistance should fill in the digital social impact assessment form by going to the following link for the digital registration system: onlineservices.stmartin.gov.org/COVID-19/SIA-form.ASPX. The release reads in part. And with that, everyone, we've come to the end of this edition of SXM News for this evening. I'm Valerie Van Putten, and just a reminder that this and other programs are available online. Simply log on to stmartinmediacenter.com for viewing. And on behalf of the SXM Daily News team, we thank you for watching and plan on meeting you right back here again tomorrow.